Okay, so this is the task video for arcPro in the raster environment. So this is the second half of week 3 moving into week 4. And again, in this video, what we're going to be doing, we're going through the tasks of creating a distance, direction, and allocation raster for the cell towers in our study area. And then we're going to be doing in the next video, through that first one and the second video, we'll be returning to do point densities for automobile accidents in the study area. So let's get started. So we're now in our arcPro environment, and again what I've added is the cell towers, the study boundary, and the study area crashes from the geodatabase, and I've also added elevation and topographic just to give you some context in terms of this later on. And so this is how your map should be laid out. The first thing we're going to be doing again is we're going to be doing our distance raster. And in the arcPro environment, remember that we can do this, if you click on the analysis tool, you have some basic functionalities, and you'll notice that if I click on some of these, you'll see some of them open up or close. And so the first thing I'm going to do is, if I wanted to, I would click on tools, and that opens up my geoprocessing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in distance, and what we want here is Euclidean distance, and I want to show one of the kind of functions of this is that in arcPro, if I type in Euclidean allocation, and I'm going to click on this tool right now, it's actually going to save you quite a bit of time, in that when we open this up, you'll notice that it actually asks us if we want to also output our two other raster data sets. And so that's what we're going to do here. The Euclidean tool, if you use allocation, actually brings them all together. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, our input raster data set is going to be our cell towers. And I'm going to come over here and turn off our accidents so that we can see. Here are our cell towers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in here. Again, go back to my geoprocessing, it closed on me there. And I'm going to use the object ID, and that's going to be for the allocation that will allow us to see where things are going. We're going to leave the maximum distance alone. We're going to get to this in just a minute, but then we're going to put these outputs to a couple of different locations. So our distance raster, okay, our allocation raster, and our direction raster are all going to go to the same place. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to write this to, again, if I go to my desktop right now, you'll see that I have in my week 3 datasets folder, I have my results tab, and this is what I'm going to use. Now I've already done this in ArcMap, so I'm going to rename this one. Since this is my first one, I'm going to do my allocation, and we're going to use allocation for arcPro. I'm going to click save on that, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do the same thing for my distance raster, and I'm going to call this one simply distance. And for my direction, not surprisingly, I'm going to go with direction. Now, once we've done that, what we need to next do is go to our environments. I'm going to click on our environments, and these are the important ideas. So the extent is, in a sense, if we go to environments in ArcMap, we would see this slightly different. Here what I want to do is I want to say that my extent is going to be the same as my study boundary. My cell size, I'm actually going to set as the same as my elevation, and that you'll notice we'll put it at 30. And then my analysis mask, I'm also going to use my study boundary. So now I've gotten all of these things in the same scenario, and we are ready to run. Okay, so we've got our data sets here. We've got distance, direction above that, and allocation below that. And what I'd like to do now for my distance is I'm going to go over here to my symbology. I'm going to click on that, and right now it is in a classified mode. But what I'd like to do is do this as a stretch, and again, a little bit different here in terms of how we see these things than how we would see them in an arc map. I'm going to click on stretch, and then what I need to do is decide what kind of stretch I want, and in this case I'm going to have a nice kind of a red to blue. And what we can very quickly see is this idea of our Thiessen polygons beginning to appear. And so again, I will use a stretch in this case. I'm going to close that one now, dock it. And what I want to do next is I want to turn that off, and I want to look at my direction. I'm going to now, again, right click if you don't have this open, and if I look at symbology, it opens this back up for my direction, and you'll notice that it's classified. And I could change this to a stretch, and when I do that, you'll notice that it becomes, again, this kind of wrapped from very light to very dark, indicating our directional or our bearing on each one of these. But again, in this case, I think I want to keep it as classified. And in this case, again, we are going to use equal interval. And I'm going to use a color scheme. And that allows me to see what my bearings are. And so that's fine. I'm going to close that one. And now I want to look at our allocation. And so I'm going to close each one of these. Okay. And so now what we see here is our allocation, but it doesn't look like Thiessen polygons. And the reason for that is that if we look carefully here, we can see that this is actually still in a stretched form, because in fact I use the IDs for each one of these to assign to each pixel, and so Arc is defaulting into a stretched classification. So I just need to change that, and you'll notice what happens when I go here and I select unique values. We in fact get our Thiessen polygons, or our allocation. So by using the single tool in arcPro, we actually end up with all of our data sets available. Okay, so that's it for our distance, direction, allocation arcPro. Very quick to run. When I come back in the next one, we'll be looking at that point density feature in arcPro.